today we are going to review the movie Homefront that came in 2013 and we will analyze it and let's talk about its full movie review and facts. So let's start with its basic review overview. Homefront is a slow burn action thriller that focuses less on large scale crime and more on personal danger, family protection, and escalating tension in a small town setting. The film keeps its scope intentionally limited, which makes every conflict feel closer, tighter, and more personal. Yet its heart, this is not a crime epic, it is a defensive story about a man who wants peace but is forced back into violence. If we talk about its story and tone, the film follows Phil Brooker, a former undercover DEA agent who has left his violent past behind after a mission ends in tragedy. He moves with his young daughter to a quiet rural town, hoping for anonymity and safety. But the town is not as calm as it appears. What began as a minor school incident slowly snowballs into confrontation with a local drug network. The film carefully shows how small conflicts grow into deadly ones, not through coincidences but through pride, reputation, and fear. The tone stays grounded, there is no rush to explosion or chaos. Threads build gradually, giving the story a sense of realism rather than spectacle. And if we talk about character focus, then let's talk about Phil Broker first. Phil is not portrayed as a flashy action hero. He is rested, tired, and emotionally guarded. His strength feels earned rather than exaggerated. What makes him compelling is his reluctance. He does not want to fight, he wants to protect his daughter and disappear into normal life. Violence is not his identity anymore. It is a tool he hopes never to use again. If we talk about Mary Broker, Phil's daughter is central to the emotional weight of the film. She represents vulnerability and motivation. Her presence turns away every threat into something personal, not professional. If we talk about Get on Borderline, the antagonist is dangerous not because he is brilliant, but because he is reckless, insecure, and desperate for respect. His ego fuels most of the conflict. This makes him unpredictable, a man who escalates situations simply to avoid appearing weak. And if we talk about pacing and structure, the pacing is deliberate, first act, quiet setup and tension, middle rising pressure and threats, final act controlled violence and confrontation. The film avoids unnecessary detour. Every scene either increase danger or tighten emotional stakes. There are no distractions, no side plots. The still focus the central conflict. If we talk about action and realism, action scenes are short, brutal, and practical. There is no glamour in the violence. Fights are messy, gunplay is tense, not flashy. The film understands that real danger is fast and ugly, not styles. This realism makes the climax more effective because it feels like the inevitable result of everything that came before. And if we talk about themes, first that come in my mind is family protection. The strongest theme is parental instinct. Every decision Phil makes is shaped by his responsibility as a father. And let me talk about the inescapable past. The film suggests that certain skills, especially violence, one can't simply be erased. Trying to live peacefully doesn't mean danger will ignore you. If we talk about pride and destruction, most violence in the story comes from wounded pride, not necessity. Ego escalates conflict faster than reason. Atmosphere and setting, the small town setting, work as a pressure cooker. There are fewer places to hide, fewer people to trust, and nowhere to despair. And this isolation makes the threats feel constant and unavoidable. And if we talk about ending impact, the ending does not celebrate violence, it glorifies relief. Not the danger is removed, but the emotional scars remain. The film reinforced that no survival does not equal victory. It simply means life continues. Let's talk about some facts about Homefront 2013. It releases in 2013 and its director is Gary Fleder, writer is Celeste Stallone, and it's based on a novel by Chuck Logan. And its genre is it's an action thriller movie and its runtime is 100 minutes. And if we talk about some notable facts of this movie, Sylvester Stallone original wrote the script for himself, but later passed the lead role to Jason Statham. This film is one of Jason Statham's more restrained performance, focusing on emotion over physical dominance. The story emphasizes realism rather than stylized action, separating it from typically action franchises. The small scale setting was intentionally chosen to make the danger feel intimate. And if we talk about overall verdict, then Homefront 2013 succeeds because it does not try to be bigger than it needs to be. It stays grounded, emotional driven, and focused on cause and effect storytelling. It is not about saving the world, it is about protecting one child from a world that refuses to stay quiet. A solid controlled thriller with emotion weight beneath his action. And if we talk about more, then let's talk about it. So let's start. If we talk about its emotional undercurrent, a man who is already broken. Phil Brooker doesn't begin the film at peace. He begins with recovery. The opening tragedy leaves him emotionally withdrawal, and the move to a small town is not a fresh start but a retreat. His silence is not strength, it is damage. The film carefully shows that he is not escaping danger, he is escaping himself, and small conflicts becoming fatal. One of the strongest elements of Homefront is how ordinary incident becomes deadly. A schoolyard problem, a confrontation between parent, a wounded ego, and nothing feels exaggerated. The escalation feels natural, driven by pride, insecurity, and the refusal to back down. The film quietly warns how fragile peace really is. If we talk about Gator Bodine's psychological collapse, Gator is not a mastermind, he is someone who feels humiliated, overshadowed, and desperate to be feared. His decisions are emotional, not strategic. This makes him more dangerous than a calm villain. His instability creates chaos not because he wants destruction, but because he can't tolerate disrespect. Rural crime as an invisible threat. The drug operation is not flashy. It blends into daily life. This is important. Crime does not announce itself. It hides behind normalcy, routine, and local relationship. The town is not corrupt, it is unaware. And if we talk about fatherhood versus vulnerability, Maddie's presence does not make feel stronger, it makes him exposed. Every thread he hits deeper because it is not about him anymore. The film repeatedly shows Phil choosing restraint even when it cost him dignity because violence risks his daughter's safety. Protection requires patience before power. And if we talk about action with consequences, when violence finally erupts, it feels earned and exhausting. The film avoids long spectacular fights. Instead, confrontation are brief, chaotic, and emotionally heavy. The aftermath matters as much as the act itself. And if we talk about the final confrontation, the climax is not about domination, it is about survival. Phil does not win through brute force alone, but through awareness, timing, and resolve. His experience gives him control but not invincibility. The tension remains grounded until the very end. If we talk about moral restraint, the film avoids more speeches. It lets behavior define character. Phil does not enjoy violence yet or can't stop himself from it. The contrast is clear without being stated. And if we talk about ending tone, quiet recovery, the ending offers relief, not celebration. The danger is removed, but nothing is truly restored. Phil has crossed a line he hoped never to return to. Peace is possible, but it comes with emotional cost. And if we talk about additional facts, the film was shot in Louisiana to enhance the rural, isolated atmosphere. Jason Statham deliberately played the role with minimal dialogue to emphasize emotional restraint. The story avoids global stakes to keep danger intimate and believable. The film's grounded approach makes it stand apart from high concept action thriller, and if we talk about its final deep verdict, Homefront that came in 2013 worked because it understands that the most intense battles are personal. It's not about crime syndicates or world threats, it is about a father who refuses to let his past define his child's future, a controlled, realistic, and emotionally grounded action thriller. And let's talk about some more review of the movie. It's taking little time, so you have to wait. If we talk about violence as the last language, throughout the film, Filmbroker avoids confrontation even when provoked. He does not posture, threaten, or attempt to dominate. This restraint is deliberate. He understands that once violence begins, it can't be controlled, only survived. The film shows violence not as empowerment but as failure of dialogue. Every punch, gunshot, or chase exists because something else already collapsed. And if we talk about the weight of experience, Field's effectiveness does not come from strength alone. It comes from memory. He reads danger early, not because he is fearless, but because he recognizes patterns he wishes he could forget. His calm is not confidence, it is caution learned through loss. And if we talk about the antagonist blind spot, Gator's weakness is not lack of resources but lack of restraint. He believes aggression equals authority. Every setback pushes him to escalate rather than reconsider. The constraint, this contrast is critical. Field escalates until forced, Gator escalates until destroyed, and the film frames this difference as the line between survival and self-destruction. And if we talk about community and pressure, the town does not actively support his conflict, but its silence enables it gossip, rumors, and half truth spread faster than fact. The film suggests that danger grows not only through action but through inaction. If we talk about father reframing strength, Phil's greater fear is not death, it is his daughter witnessing who he truly is. Every violent act risks revealing a part of himself he wants to bury. This adds emotional tension that never disappears even during the action. If we talk about the final moment revisited, the ending is deliberately restrained. There is no victory speech, no emotional release. Phil survives, but the cost is visible. Safety returns, innocence does not. And if we talk about subtle craft choices, lighting grows darker as conflict escalates. Music stays minimal to avoid glorifying danger. Camera work stay close, limiting scope and escape. These choices keep the film grounded and claustrophobic. Why the film resonates quickly? Homefront does not seek attention through spectacle, it earns engagement through relatability. Many thrillers ask how far will a man go. This film asks how much can a man endure before he must act. And if we talk about final quiet truth, the film ends up not with triumph but with acceptance. Phil can't erase his past, he can only decide how it shapes the future. And let's talk about more review about it. It's learning guys, you have to little wait. Okay, it's done. If we talk about fear as constant companion, the film never let fear disappear, even in calm scenes. There is tension posted in glance, in silence. Phil doesn't relax because he knows danger does not announce itself, and safety is always provisional. This content alertness defines his character more than his fighting skill. If we talk about the false promise of normal life, Phil moves to the town believing that anonymity equals safety. The film dismantles this idea slowly. Conflict does not seek you out, it waits for proximity. Normal life is fragile, especially when built on avoidance rather than healing. If, if we talk about why silence dominates the film, dialogue is minimal because words are ineffective here. The town runs on implication, repetition, and unspoken rules. Silence becomes a survival tactic. Speaking draws attention, and if we talk about Maddie's innocence and contrast, Maddie's Maddie's opens contrast sharply with her father's guarded nature. She trusts easily, speaks freely, and believes in fairness. This innocence heightens tension, not sentimentally. Every threat feels heavier because she can't receive it yet, and if we talk about the slow loss of control, feels restraint erodes gradually, each boundary crossed, each warning ignored, brings him closer to action. The film emphasizes this erosion rather than the violence itself. By the time he fights back, it feels unavoidable. If we talk about the villains need to be seen, Gatto's aggression is performative. He wants witness respect to him only exist if others are watching. This needs expose his insecurity and escalation his downfall. And if we talk about violence without release, when violence occurs, it does not release tension, it transfers it. The threat shifts from but does not vanish. Consequences linger the town afterward. The film doesn't show celebration or community healing. It ends quietly suggesting that real resumes, but nothing is forgotten. This danger has a memory, and if you talk about the film's emotional discipline, Homefront refuses to manipulate emotion. There is no swelling music, no heroic framing. It trusts the situation to speak for itself. And if we talk about final layer of meaning, the film suggests that true strength is not dominance, it's containment. Phil doesn't win by becoming more violent than his enemy. He survives by becoming more controlled. If we talk about final thought, Hometown 2013 is about what happens when peace is challenged by people who don't value it, but force always leaves a mark. And if we go for more, then let's start. It's taking time in loading, guys. If we talk about the meaning of the title, expanded, Homefront is not about war zones or mission. It is about the moment danger crosses into the most intimate space of personal hand. The house, the school, the neighborhood, places associated with safety become source of threat. The film argues that when conflict reaches home, there is no escape, only confirmation. The front line is so long and distant it is personal. If we talk about identify that canon is shared, Phil proper says his location, his job and his lifestyle, but the film makes it clear that identity is not something that can be packed away. Skill, instinct, and reaction follows it. This is not glorified, it is portrayed as a burden. His competence isolates him from others because it reminds him for past or he can't fully erase. And if we talk about the cost of being capable, and the film quietly shows the painful irony. The more capable Phil is, the less normal his life can be. His ability to protect is the same ability that attracts danger once noticed. If we talk, and capability creates attention invites threat. If we talk about threats that can that come from ego, not strategy, the antagonists do not plan carefully. They react emotionally, pride, embarrassment, and the needs to save face push the conflict forward. This makes the danger unpredictable. There is no logic to negotiate with because the conflict is fueled by humiliation rather than reason. If we talk about a town that reflects human nature, the community does not intervene because it doesn't understand the depth of the threat until it's far too late. And if we talk about a town that reflects human nature, the community does not intervene because it doesn't understand the depth of threat until it's too late. People choose comfort or confirmation, and the film suggests that evil often grows not because people support it, but because they avoid it. If we talk about fatherhood as moral anchor, Phil moral lines defined by his daughter's presence. He doesn't nor doesn't fight to win. He fights to stop. Protection is about ending danger, not proving dominance. The emotional end state by the film by the end Phil is not healed, he is still but scary safety restored, but innocence is altered. The film closes on emotional realism. Survival doesn't mean close. And if we talk about final layer truth, Homefront present violence and smoothing that never fully resolve a problem. And if it only creates spaces for life to continue. Peace is fragile, normalcy is temporary, protection has pace, and if we talk about more, then yes, we can talk about. And if we continue the review, so let's talk about the quiet psychology of readiness. Phil Broker is never relaxed even in moments of apparent calm. His posture is scanning eyes and his hesitation before trusting and even reveal a man who lives in permanent state of readiness. The film treats this not as heroism but as psychological damage, permanent states of readiness. The film treats this not as heroism but as a psychological damage. Readiness is excessive. It drains normal life of spontaneity and joy. Peace becomes something to guard, not enjoy. Why Phil never fully belongs. Phil can't integrate into the town because belonging requires vulnerability. To belong is it assumes safety, something he no longer believes in. The film subtly shows this isolation. He doesn't socialize. He avoids local conflict. He keeps emotional distance. This is not arrogance. It is survival behavior. If we talk about the villain's insecurity as fuel, Gatter's word lines violence is fueled by desperate need to matter. He feels ignored, underestimated, and overshadowed. Every insult cuts deeper than physical pain. The film portrayed him as dangerous, not because he is powerful, but because he is emotional, unstable, and impulsive. Escalation without villainy. What makes Homefront effective is that escalation feels believable. No one wakes up intending to destroy everything. Each character makes choices that seem justified to them until the consequences spiral beyond control. The film suggests that most violence begins as misjudgment, not evil. If we talk about the use of specs, the film often traps character in confirmed environments, small houses, narrow roads, isolated locations. These spaces remove escape routes and amplify tension. There is nowhere to retreat. physically or emotionally. If we talk about action breakdown or restraint, when Phil finally act decisively, it feels like a psychological breaking point rather than a trim. He crosses the line, he hopes to revisit the film treats this moment with gravity, not excitement, and if we talk about the absence of celebration after the conflict, there is no sense of accomplishment or the relief. The film refuses to reward violence emotionally. It presents it as necessary but corrosive. And if we talk about the lingering cost, the danger is gone, but awareness remains. Phil and his daughter are safe, but Sands acknowledge that peace can be interrupted, never fully lives. This lingering unease is the film's final emotional note. If we talk about final deep meaning, and so Homefront is not about defeating enemies, it is about maintaining boundaries, emotional, moral, and physical, in a world that constantly tests them. True strength is not how hard you strike, it is how long you can hold back and still act when there is no other choices. And let's talk about more. It's loading, so you have to wait. If we talk about the illusion of escape, Phil Broker's move to a quiet town is not a search for happiness, it is an attempt to pause pain. The film makes it clear that escape is not healing, trauma travels eternally, not geographically. Every calm moment feels burned, the stillness is temporary, like silence before presence. The film treats peace as something that must be defended, not assumed. Trauma as a daily companion. Feels trauma doesn't surface in speeches or breakdowns. It exists in routine, how we scan rooms, how we react faster than others, how we stays emotionally guarded. The film respects trauma by not dramatizing it. It shows how damage becomes normalized, how survival instinct replaces comfort. And if we talk about the slow recognition of threat, one of the film's strongest qualities is how Phil senses danger before it comes obvious. He notices patterns other ignores. This awareness doesn't make him arrogant. It isolates him. Knowing more than others creates distance. The film suggests that experience is often lonely. Conflict rooted in humiliation, the central conflict escalates not because of pride, but because of founded pride. Get your Bordine feels exposed and embrace each insult away at his control. The film emphasizes that humiliation is more violently then greed money can be negotiated, pride can't. And if we talk about violence as an emotional shortcut, forget or violence is the fastest way to reclaim identity. It bypasses reason, apology, and patience. The film contrasts with this with feels restrained. Feel understand that violence solve nothing long term, but he also understands when restraint becomes dangerous. If we talk about fatherhood as constant calculation, feels Lily's decisions are never impulsive. Every choice passes through one question: does this protect my daughter? This calculation slows the film deliberately. Action is delayed, tension builds, and danger feels heavier because it carries emotional consequence. The town's passive role. The community does not act because it does not want to acknowledge the threat. Avoidance masquerades as neutrality. The film quietly critiques this behavior danger thrives where discomfort is ignored. And if we talk about the breaking point, in Phil finally confronts the danger directly. It doesn't feel heroic, it feels like a line crossed under pressure. The film framed this moment as loss, not victory. Loss of anonymity, loss of restraint, loss of hope for a quiet life, and the nature of the final conflict. The climax is tight, grounded, and emotionally heavy. There is no spectacle. Violence arrives abruptly and ends quickly. This really reinforces the film's message. Real conflict is chaotic, unfair, and final. Aftermath without closure. The ending doesn't pretend everything is fixed. Phil survives, his daughter is saved, but the emotional residue remains. Safety is restored. Innocence is not. The film allows this discomfort to linger. Craft and direction fact based. The film avoids heavy scoring to keep tension natural. Action scenes rely on practical choreography rather than exaggeration. The rural setting enhances isolation and vulnerability. Jason Statham's performance is intentionally restrained, focusing on internal conflict. Why Homefront works? Homefront 2013 succeeds because it understands scale. It never tries to be larger than its story. Its power comes from, and if we talk about intimacy or spectacles, emotions or access, consequence or fantasy. And if we talk about final expanded truth, the film ultimately argues that violence is not a solution. It's a last resort that permanently alters those who use it. Peace is not permanent, protection is not clean. Survival is not victory, and sometimes the hardest fight is not against enemy but against the part of yourself you hoped you had never need again. And if we go for more, if we talk about normalcy as performance, in our normal life is something Phil performs rather than inhabit. Simple acts, walking his doctor to school, talking to neighbors, shopping, career. Undercurrent of vigilance, the film subtly show how drama forces people to act normal instead of feeling normal. This performance becomes exhausting and the cracks widen as danger approaches. The fragile social contract the town operates on an unspoken agreement: don't interfere, don't ask questions, don't escalate. This social contract works only until someone breaks it. Once the conflict becomes visible, the community interest instead of responding. The film presenting present this withdrawal as realistic, not cruel. People protect their own sense of safety by pretending nothing is wrong. And if we talk about threat as proximity, not power, the antagonist danger comes not from reach or resources, but from closeness. He lives nearby, he knows names, he appears in ordinary spaces. This proximity removes the illusion of safety. Violence no longer feels distant or abstract, it feels immediate. And if we talk about feels internal content, as the story progresses, feels restrained, feels like a ticking clock. Each proaction, it is a reminder that control has limits. The film builds tension not by increasing action, but by reducing option. By the time violence erupts there, it's no alternative left. Violence without identity. When Phil fight, it does not define him, it betrays him. Each violent act reminds him of a version of himself he wanted to abandon. This eternal conflict gives the action weight. It's not about winning, it is about stopping something from getting worse. The antagonist collapses. The villain unrevealing is gradual, his decision grows more reckless, not more intelligent. The film emphasizes emotional desperate over strategic planning. This makes the conflict feel tragedy inevitable. If we talk about the emotional aftershock, after the final confrontation, the film does not rush to closure. There is space for silence, recovery, and reflection. This restraint allows the emotional cost of settle. If we talk about subtle technical choices, facts, camera framing stays tight to maintain claustrophobia, and lighting shifts dark as conflict escalates. Sound designs avoids exaggerated effects. Action is choreographed to feel sudden and dangerous. If we talk about the film's quiet message, Homefront suggests that peace is not found, it is maintained, and maintaining it requires awareness, restraint, and sometimes force. But force leaves scars, and if we talk about final reflection, the film ends without moral certainty. It doesn't claim that violence was right, only that it became unavoidable. If we talk about the cost of protection is permanent change, If we talk about living in a state of anticipation, Phil Broker does not wait for danger, he anticipates it. The film repeatedly shows him preparing mentally for a situation that never fully arrives. And this question altogether becomes its own burden. He is always one step ahead, but that steps cost him peace. This anticipation shapes his personality. He is careful with words, distant in relationship, and slow to trust. The film represent this is as freedom alone, but as the price of survival. If we talk about peace as temporary condition, one of the film's most important ideas is that peace is not permanent, it is conditional, it exists only as long as no one decides to disrupt it. The town feels calm because no one has challenged its balance yet. Once that balance is tested, the illusion collapses quickly. The film quietly suggests that peace often exists not because danger is absent but because it is unknowledged. Escalation through recognition. The conflict escalates the moment Phil is recognized as capable. Others realize he is not weak. He becomes a threat. The film shows a disturbing truth. Competence attracts conflict when pride is involved. Creator can't tolerate someone he cannot dominate. The danger grows not for criminal necessity, but from identity conflict. And if we talk about the daughter has emotional gravity, but he is not a plot device. She is emotional gravity. Every decision means to her a safety. The film ensure that she remains present in the viewer's mind even when she is off screen. This constant awareness makes the tension persistent. The threat never feels abstract because the stakes are always human and immediate. If we talk about violence as a breaking of self image, when Phil finally resort to violence, it is not framed as empowerment, it is framed as a collapse of the identity he tried to build. The film makes it clear violence doesn't solve his eternal struggle, it confirms it. This movement carries sadness rather than triumph. And if we talk about the antagonist self destruction, Cater Borderline doesn't lose because he is weaker, he loses because he can't stop escalating, he needs to assert dominance over rights. Survival instinct, the film presents him as a cautionary figure, pride without restraint leads to root. We talk about the town's quiet complicity, no one directly supports the antagonist, but no one stops him either. silence becomes a form of permission. The film the film subtly criticizes this passivity. Evil does not need encouragement, only space. And if we talk about the final confrontation, emotional weight, the climax is deliberately tight and grounded. There is no spectacles, no choreography meant to impress. Every moment feels desperate. The danger ends not with satisfaction but with exhaustion. And aftermath without healing, the ending refuses emotional resolution. Phil and his daughter survive, but the experience has altered their sense of safety. The films respect reality, trauma doesn't vanish when danger ends. And if we talk about technical discipline expanded, the film avoids styled cinematography to preserve realism. Sound design emphasizes silence and subtle noise. Action sequences are brief to reflect real confrontation. The Statham's performances relies heavily on body language rather than dialogue, and why Homefront stands apart unlike many action films. Homefront doesn't glorify confrontation. It treats violence as disruptive, not affirming. The film's strength lies in restraint, not scale. If we talk about its final expanded meaning, then Homefront is about the cost of being prepared in a world that mistake calm for safety. It shows that protecting what you love may require becoming someone you hoped you had never to be again, and living with that knowledge afterward. Peace survives, but innocence doesn't. And let's talk about more review. If we talk about safety as a psychological illusion, one of the film's quiet achievement is how it dismantles the idea that safety is a place. Phil believes that by changing geography he can change destiny. The film slowly proves wrong. Safety is not about where you live, it is about the people around you, their values, and how quickly order can fracture. The town is peaceful only because nothing has tested it yet. When pressure arrives, it calms, reveals itself as fragile and reactive. If we talk about the emotional cost of self control, Phil's restraint is not effortless. Every time he swallows his anger, it costs him something. The film subtly communicates this through pauses, glances, reaction, and delayed responses. Self-control becomes form of emotional labor. It protects other, but it isolates the one who carries it. The film suggests that long-term restraint without release or healing eventually demands a wrong reckoning. And if we talk about masculinity without fostering, unlike many action films, Homefront avoids exaggerating masculinity. Phil does not dominate conversation, threaten people, or seek validation. His strength is quite reactive and defensive. This portal strips away fantasy and presents masculinity as responsibility rather than power. Violence is not used to prove worth, it is used only when dignity and safety are directly threatened. If we talk about the antagonist as mirror of failure, gutter borderline represent what happens when insecurity goes unchecked. He reacts emotional instead of strategically, and every attempt to assert dominance accelerates his collapse. The film frames him not as pure evil but as someone who can't tolerate loss of control. His downfall is less about being defeated and more about being unable to himself. If we talk about the town's blindness, the community sign is one of the film's most unsettling elements. People sense something is wrong but choose distance over involvement. The film implies that moral failure often looks like neutrality by the time action feels justified. The damage is already done. If we talk about violence as minority, not really. When violence finally arrives, it doesn't feel cathartic, it feels abrupt, ugly, and irreversible. The film refuses to turn conflict into a spectacle. Instead, it shows violence as a point of no return, a moment after which life must be rebuilt, not resumed. And if we talk about fatherhood as emotional gravity expanded, Phil's relationship with his daughter is the film's emotional anchor. She is not just something to protect, she is the reason Nestor exists at all. Every choice he makes is filtered through the fear of becoming someone she should not see. This eternal conflict is constant and unresolved. And if we talk about protection becomes both motivated and burden. And if we talk about the weight of survival in Homefront is not victory. It is continuation. The film and safety restored, but emotional learning gone feels word is quieter, not lighter. This refuse to offer emotional closure is one of the most honest choices. If we talk about craft and direction, additional facts, the screenplay emphasizes cause and effect escalation. Violence is always preceded by Vanessa the camera avoids heroic framing to keep realism intact. The story remains tightly focused to avoid diluting tension. And if I talk about why the film lingers, Homefront stays with the viewer because it mirrors real fear, not dramatic fear, but domestic fear. The fear that safety can't be interrupted by ordinary people making reckless choice. It understands that danger doesn't need to extraordinary to be devastating. If we talk about final extended meaning, the film ultimately argues that peace is not something you earn once. It is something you defend repeatedly. Sometimes defending it requires force, but force changes defending forever. Homefront is not about winning, it's about enduring and carrying the weight of that endurance forward. Let's talk about more. It's not loaded, guys. Yes, it is. I think. Yes. So, if we talk about the slow collapse of ordinary life, what Homefront captures expectationally well is how quickly ordinary life become unfamiliar. The school hallway, the gas station, the neighborhood's road all remain visually the same, yet emotional they change once hostility enters this space. They never fully recovers their innocence. The film suggests that danger doesn't arrive loudly, it seeps in quietly through misunderstandings, pride, and unresolved anger. If we talk about conflict, begins with ego, not violence. The initial conflict is almost trivial. A child defends herself, a parent reacts, emotional pride becomes wounded. What should be resolved through conversation instead grows through disturbance. The film emphasizes that violence often begins long before feasts are thrown. It begins when people refuse to stay back. Mm, If we talk about Phil's silence as a strategy, Phil's silence is often mistaken for weakness by those around him. In reality, it is strategic. He understands that escalation feeds instability. His restraint is calculated, not passive. This dynamic becomes tragic because restraint only works when other respect boundaries, and in this town boundaries are interpreted as provocation. The emotional geography of the town itself functions like pressure chamber. Small community amplify conflict because everyone gossips becomes a weapon, reputation becomes currency, and there is no enemy, no escape, no neutral ground. Every interaction feels observed, judged, and disturbed, and the antagonist spiral expanded. Greater Bodine doesn't seek peace because peace would require accountability. Each confrontation hardens him further, not because he grows stronger, but because he grows more desperate. The film portrays him as someone addicted to reaction. He doesn't plan, he responds impulsively, and every response worsens his situation. This makes him dangerous not because he is smart, but because he is reckless. The more exertion of the protagonist. By the final act, Phil is not angry, he is tired of explaining himself, tired of pretending he can outrun his past, tired of protecting peace when peace refuses to protect him. This exhaustion makes the final confrontation feel inevitable rather than dramatic. And if we talk about violence without glory, the film's handling of violence remains grounded. There is no triumph, no celebration, no sense of victory. Each act of force, like failure, even when justified, The camera never invites the viewer to cheer, it invites the viewer to endure. And the cost of capability, one of the film's strongest ideas is that being capable of violence is a burden, not a gift. Phil knows exactly how much damage he can do, and that knowledge isolates him. Power becomes something to suppress rather than display. If we talk about parenting under threat, Phil's daughter senses danger long before it is explained to her. The film respects her intelligence, portraying her fear as initiative rather than exaggerated. Her presence heightens every decision. There is no room for mistakes, only consequences. And if we talk about emotional aftermath of resolution, the ending avoids emotional reassurance, safety returns, but normalcy doesn't. The silence at the end is heavier than the chaos before it. The film understands that survival doesn't erase trauma, it merely pause it. And if we talk about the film's uh, core statement, Homefront ultimately argues that violence is contagious, restraint is misunderstood, protection requires sacrifice, and peace is fragile when ego rules. It is not a story about stopping evil, it is a story about limiting damage. If we talk about why Homefront feels real, because it refuses fantasy, because it treats conflict as messy, uh, because it shows that even the right decision leaves a scar. The film doesn't offer comfort, it offers recognition. If we talk about final reflection, Homefront is not an action movie about domination, it is a quieting warning about escalation. A story about a man who wants nothing more than to live normally and learns that normalcy must sometimes be defended at a personal cost. It lingers because it feels possible. Let's talk about its more review. It's not loaded still, yes it is. And if we talk about the illusion of escape, one of the most understated ideas in Homefront is the illusion that distance equals freedom. Phil Broker believes that by moving away from his former life, he can also move from its consequences. And film, the film quietly dismantles this belief. Geography changes, but psychology doesn't. The instinct that once kept him alive now prevent him from blending it in. The past doesn't chase him loudly, it waits patiently for the right trigger. And if we talk about small conflict, permanent image, the film repeatedly shows how small incidents can permanently after lives. A single school fight becomes the sparks that ignite a chain reaction involving drugs, weapons, and death. What's the important is that no one initially intended for things to go this far. The tragedy lies in how easily people allow pride and anger to override reason. If we talk about the community's silent roles, the town is not evil, but it's complicit through inaction. Teacher, neighbors, and locals witness warning signs, yet choose distance over responsibility. The film suggests that violence often thrives not because of violence alone, but because ordinary people decided it's not their problem. Masculinity under pressure. Homefronts explore masculinity in a raw, grounded way. The men in the film respond different to conflict, and if we talk about Phil, Susan restraint and control, Gator Susan dominance and reaction, other men Susan avoidance or submission. The film doesn't praise any of teachers, it observes them and shows their consequences. And if we talk about Getter as a product environment, Getter is not portrayed as intelligent or strategic, but he is consistent. But he is shaped by humiliation, addiction, and the need to prove relevance in a safe place where he feels invisible. His cruelty is less about power and more about refusing to feel small. If we talk about the unavoidable collision, the film builds towards its climax, slowly emphasizing inevitability rather than surprise by the victim. The time violence erupts, it feels less like an explosion and more like gravity finally taking effect. And there is no sense that things could have gone differently. Only that they should have. And if we talk about violence as emotional failure, every violent act in the film presents moment where communication fails. Dialogues disappear and force replace it. And if we talk about the film, restricts this as tragic, not thrilling. The father-daughter bond deep layer. Phil's relationship with his daughter is not built on speeches or reassurance, it is built on presence. He watches, he listens, he anticipates danger before it reaches her. A quiet attentiveness contrasts sharply with a neglect shown by other parents in the film. If we talk about the weight of responsibility, Phil understands that every decision he makes carries ripple effect. Even when justified violence forces him to accept consequences that extend beyond himself. If we talk about protection, is shown as responsibility, not heroism. And if we talk about cinematic restraint, the film direction avoids stylization. Camera movement is practical, lighting remains grounded, action scenes are brief and purposeful. This restraint reinforces the film's emotional realism. Nothing feels exaggerated and nothing feels safe. More ambiguity without confusion. The film avoids simple moral binaries. Good people make bad decisions, bad people have understandable motivation, justifies arrives, but it what not heal. The world of Homefront is morally exhausted, not morally confused. And if we talk about the final note, the ending doesn't offer relief, it offers stability, a fragile, temporary calm that could be broken again under the wrong circumstance. The audience is left with a quiet understanding survival is not the same as peace, and why harm Homefront ultimately says you can't outrun who you are. Violence grows from unresolved pride. Silence can be mistaken for weakness. Protection always costs something. And why the film stays with you? Because it feels plausible. Because it respects consequences. Because it refuses fantasy. Homefront doesn't ask you to admire its hero. It asks you to understand his burden. Let's talk about more review of this movie. If we talk about when strength becomes a liability, uh, one of the film quietest but strongest one of the film's quietest but strongest idea is that strength itself can be dangerous. Will's physical and tactical competence doesn't protect him socially. Instead, it separates him. People sense that he is different long before they understand why. And the film shows that in ordinary communities, extraordinary abilities creates discomfort. Strength invites suspicion, calm invites challenge, silence invites testing. The failure of de-escalation. The film consistently attempts to de-escalate situation. He avoids confrontation, chooses restraint, and tries to end conflict early. The tragedy is that de-escalation only works when both sides value peace. And if we talk about the film illustrates a painful truth, restraint in front of someone driven by ego is often interpreted as disrespect. Peace becomes an insult, and if we talk about fear travels faster than facts, as tension grows up, fears spread through humor rather than evidence. People choose sides without understanding the full picture. The film subtly shows how misinformation accelerates conflict faster than violence itself. By the time the truth is surfaced, positions already hardened. If we talk about Gatter's psychological decline extended, if we talk about Gatter's arc is not about war, it's about collapse. Every attempt to assert dominance makes him more unstable. He mistakes fear for respect, control for authority. The film doesn't romanticize him, it allows the audience to witness how unchecked pride corrodes judgment until self destruction feels inevitable. And addiction as background noise, substance abuse is never treated as a central plot device, but it shapes behavior constantly. Decisions are impulsive, reaction are exaggerated, judgment is distorted. The film suggests addiction doesn't create violence, it removes the barriers that once prevented it. If we talk about the geography of danger, the open space of the town initially suggest freedom, but gradually they feel exposed. Roads becomes escapes routine, and ambience avoids simultaneously. The isolation that once promised peace becomes vulnerability. If we talk about the safety, the film argues it's not about specs, it's about trust. Fatherhood without words, Phil rarely explained danger to his daughter in traumatized terms. He doesn't panic her off or protect her. He adjusts routines, change patterns, watch closely. This subtle parenting style emphasizes preparedness over fear, awareness over control. We talk about violence as an interruption, not a studio solution. Every violent moment interrupts life rather than resolve it. After each conflict, things are worse, not better. Relationships fracture, fear deepens, consequences multiply. The film refuses the fantasy that violence brings clarity. So it was a review of this movie. I hope you like it and let's goodbye. We will meet tomorrow again. So goodbye.